From the beautiful campus of Iowa Western Community College, the Media Studies and Culinary Arts programs, along with CBTV 17, presents Reiver Recipes. Here's your host, Chef Gino.
Roasting peppers right on the fire. Hi, I'm Gene. We're back for Reiver Recipes once again. Good to see y'all again. We're here today, and we're gonna do a little playing around with some vegetables. You know, I know a lot of people, when you say the word vegetables, they go, ooh. And I can understand why. Because when I was young, my mom, God rest her soul, did not know how to cook vegetables. She believed that broccoli should be brown. So I never really tasted good broccoli until I moved out. Sorry, Mom. But vegetables are an important part of my diet. I was a vegetarian several times in my life. Now that I'm a teacher, I feel like I have to taste whatever people make, but in my own life, I don't eat a lot of meat. I like vegetables. Obviously, if you don't eat meat, you have to get protein elsewhere, but vegetables, I remember a few years back hearing Warren Moon on a commercial on the radio saying everyone needed to eat 12 orders of fruit and vegetables every day, which seemed a little unreasonable for most people, not for me. And this is a way to get your children to eat healthy from the beginning of their lifetime. My children took vegetables to school for lunch. Other kids thought they were freaks. When my daughter was little, we'd go to the grocery store. Instead of getting her candy, we'd get her a red bell pepper. And by the time we got out to ring out, all that would be left was the sticker so they could ring her out. But she liked to eat a whole red pepper while we were shopping. We washed it off for her. Today what I'm gonna do, a lot of times when you have a party, you're looking for appetizers to serve at your party. So today what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make a roasted and grilled vegetable platter, which is something you could do at home very simply. First of all, like I said, I have the peppers roasting right on the fire. You don't necessarily have to roast them on the fire. You could roast them on a grill if you want, but the best, quickest, most effective way to roast your peppers is right on the flame. Not only do they get a nice flavor, but the whole room smells pretty good. So what you want to do is you want to roast them until they get black, just like this one right here. Some burners work better than others. You can see the black on the outside of the skin. Once the whole pepper is covered with black, you can either put it in a bowl or in a plastic Ziploc bag and let it sit for 15, 20 minutes, and then the steam will force the skin away from the pepper. Some people believe that you shouldn't use running water to take the skin off, but if you don't, it's going to take you a really long time. So I'm not opposed to using a little running water to get the skin off of the pepper. So while those peppers are roasting, I want to prepare the asparagus. I actually went to the grocery store this morning to get asparagus for this filming, and when I first looked at the asparagus, it wasn't real nice. So I said to the produce guy who I know, his name is X, I said, hey, I need some better asparagus. And he said, we have to sell that first. And I said, this is for a television production with CB17. He said, hold on, I'll go get you some. So he ran in the back and he brought out a case, and I took the time to pick out the finest asparagus I could find, which I have for you right here. So one thing I do when I blanch my asparagus is I leave the rubber bands on. So this way, when it's done, they're all facing in the same direction and I don't have to mess around with that. So before I drop, I have some water here, salted water, which is close enough to boiling. I'm gonna take the asparagus, and they say the best way to tell where to break it is to break it by hand, but unless you got a lot of people with a lot of hands, most of the time you cut the bottoms off. And you wanna try to estimate where the asparagus starts to get woody, and you can see that here on the asparagus. So first thing I do is cut the asparagus to a proper length. So you might say this is trash, but really, what could I do with this asparagus? Excuse me?
Make soup.
Much better. Yes. Just like the pumpkin soup we made in our last show, we could take these asparagus stems and use them to make soup. Not today. Okay, so we're going to continue. I'm going to take this asparagus right here, and I'm going to drop it right into the pot. If your water is salted, it will immediately turn green. So I want to cook it till it's just right, and then I want to cool it off. You notice our peppers are continuing to blacken. The whole pepper is almost black now. I want to take the time to get every inch of the pepper black before. If you leave it on the flame too long, it'll burn a hole right through the pepper. So You want it to be black, but not ashen, okay? We have a grill here in our kitchen, which I have started up a little while ago. If you were gonna grill vegetables or anything for that matter, the first thing you have to do is get your grill hot. And then after it's hot, you need to clean it. You can even clean it before it's hot if you want, but it's a lot easier when it's hot. Whether you have an electric grill, a gas grill, a charcoal grill, I myself prefer charcoal and wood mixed together. I have a smoker even. I don't necessarily like to smoke my vegetables because they have such a nice flavor. One thing grilling will do to your vegetables is it'll help to caramelize the outside and add another level of flavor, almost a sweetness to it. So that's why we grill our vegetables. Besides roasting the peppers, I'm gonna keep an eye on the asparagus. I've said this before, when you cook for a while, when the asparagus is done, you could hear it calling out to you. Obviously, if you're cooking a whole bunch of things at one time, you might not be able to hear it, so there's absolutely nothing wrong with setting a timer. If you want the asparagus to be perfect, you should ice it down right when it's cooked. So before you ever drop it in the water, get yourself some ice. Okay, so I have several other vegetables. One of my particular favorite vegetables that gets kind of a bad rap sometimes is eggplant. Some people, the only way they'll eat eggplant is an eggplant parmesan, if at all. So I like to grill the eggplant. So what I'll do is, I'll cut the ends off of the eggplant first and kind of discard them eventually. And then what I'm gonna do is, I could cut the eggplant into coin-shaped pieces, but since I'm gonna grill it and then I'm gonna cut it up afterwards, I'm gonna cut it into long pieces, like so. And then I'm gonna place it in this bowl right here. And then I'm gonna get my basil. I have a little bit more fresh basil back here, which I got at the store. My garden has stopped producing basil finally. So I'm gonna take the basil, and we talked about the chiffonade cut. I'm just gonna cut a chiffonade of basil using that same cutting technique where I keep my thumb behind my forefinger and my pointing finger and that other finger that I shouldn't show you. Just cut it up real nice. And then I'm gonna put this in the bowl with the eggplants. I have a little bit of olive oil here. I'm gonna put some olive oil. One thing about eggplant, it will soak up olive oil. So you might have to use a little more than you would otherwise. I'm gonna put a little pepper, fresh cracked, of course. I like to go like this when I'm finished with the pepper mill. And then a little bit of salt. And then I'm gonna toss it in the bowl to make sure it's all coated. If it's not, I might need a little bit more oil, especially for the eggplant, and a little more salt and pepper. So I'm gonna put this on the grill and we'll return to continue with the roasted and grilled vegetables.
My life is full of statistics. Thing is, I could have dropped out of school and become one myself, but I didn't, because I had people that believed in me. Here's another statistic. 7,000 students drop out every school day. That's one every 26 seconds. It's time that students know that we believe in them.
Inspire a student and share your message of support at boostup.org. "7,000 high school students drop out every school day. That's a line of desks more than 4 miles long. We can keep students in school. Visit boostup.org and take the first step.
Back, I'm Gene. This is Reiver Recipes. We're messing around with vegetables today. Obviously, there's millions of vegetables out there. We're just gonna concentrate on a few today. We have our eggplant grilling on our nifty little indoor grill. We wanna cook it so that it's done, but not that it's really, really soft. I got some beautiful grill marks on the eggplant. Well, some semi-beautiful ones on that one. I like to put the eggplant that's from the outside of the eggplant, this part, the skin side down, so I could cook it for a long time on that side without burning it. It's a little trickier to tell when it's done, these pieces, than it is the flat pieces, but not that hard. So, got a couple other things I'm gonna do here. I have some button mushrooms, regular button mushrooms. This is a pound of button mushrooms. It comes in a convenient container, which doesn't leak like some containers. So the first thing we have to do is wash the mushrooms. So I'm gonna go over to the sink here. I'm gonna take some cold water, and I'm gonna actually fill up this container, and I'll tell you why. If you put your mushrooms in a colander in the sink and you run water over them, then you're gonna dump the dirt right back on top. So the proper way to clean the mushrooms is to agitate them in the water, and then wait till the dirt falls to the bottom, and then remove the mushrooms from the water. And you'll see here, I'm gonna stir them up. You could take a few out if they're too crowded and then put some back in. But you could see here how they're coming out nice and clean. And one thing I'm gonna show you here is all the dirt is in the water, right there. That's where all the dirt from the mushrooms is, not on the mushrooms. So obviously we don't wanna dump the water right back on top of the mushrooms. We wanna put it in the sink. So I have my mushrooms. My peppers are just about done. You can see this one is almost ashen, but not quite. So we're gonna reserve those on the side. This one I could cook a little bit more. So the asparagus, I take it out of the cold water, which I cooled it. It's perfectly cooked. And now I will remove the rubber bands. And in that playful way, I will shoot them at the camera guy. And then I'm gonna take the pot, the same pot that I cooked the asparagus in, and I'm gonna dump the water out. I don't necessarily have to dry it. It doesn't smell overly of asparagus, not that that would be a problem for me, but I'm just gonna put the pot on the stove, and I wanna get it nice and hot while I'm doing the rest of this. So I'm gonna start building my platter, my roasted and grilled vegetable platter right now. So I don't really start off with any kind of design in mind. I kind of try to freestyle it because I've been doing it so long. And in this case, I would be influenced by the shape of the plate. So I'm just gonna take the asparagus points and put them out just like that. So we have a start. This pepper looks done too. So we wanna put these peppers into some kind of container and cover them. Through the magic of television, I already have some peppers roasted and peeled already just to save a little bit of time. So you can see our pot here is starting to get hot. So what I wanna do is, I don't want that to do, I wanna put some olive oil in it now that the water's all gone. One thing I like to do whenever I saute anything is I like to put just a tiny bit of butter in with the olive oil so I could see how hot the pot actually is. If you just put oil in the pot and let it get hot, it'll be really smoking before you know it's actually hot. So I have my mushrooms here. I want the pan to get hot. So I have some ingredients here that I'm gonna add to my mushrooms. I have some shallots, some garlic, some parsley, and some rosemary. Rosemary is a really powerful herb, but just a little bit of rosemary can give things just a great flavor. So my oil and butter is starting to bubble. One of the things about when you're cooking a sauce pot like this, if you throw everything in at once, it totally cools off the pot. So in order to maintain the heat of the pot, I'm gonna put in a couple or a few mushrooms at a time instead of putting them all in at once. And something by putting them in the water and taking them out and putting them on the surface, the extra water is gonna stay here and it's not gonna end up in the pot, which would also cool off the pot. So I'm gonna throw the mushrooms in there. And then I'm gonna add some shallots. Beautiful shallots. Shallots are half garlic, half onion, an essential sauce making tool. I have some chopped garlic. I have some chopped parsley that's not chopped enough, so I'm gonna chop it a little more. Get this water off my cutting board. And then I also have some rosemary. So rosemary, in order to get it off the stem, I just wanna go against the grain, as it were. And since, like I said, rosemary is a much more powerful herb than parsley, so I'm not gonna use nearly as much. But I'm gonna chop it in much the same way. One thing about rosemary, since it's long and stringy, it might actually jump off the table. So you wanna corral it, not let it get out of control. So I'm gonna chop that up real well. And then I'm gonna take it and I'm gonna add it to the mushrooms. I'm gonna pull my cutting board to the edge of the table so I can get every bit without getting it onto the floor because I have to sweep too. And then I'm gonna put some fresh cracked pepper, like I always do. It already smells good. We haven't even stirred it up yet. And then I'm gonna put a little bit of salt because you have to, just to make it taste good. And then I'm gonna stir it up. You know, typically I might add red wine vinegar or balsamic vinegar, but I know right here that I have this pepper juice from the roasted peppers. So I'm gonna add that to that, and then I'm gonna cover it with this saute pan, use it as a lid. So our eggplant looks pretty good. I think I'm gonna flip them over. The skinny ones look great. That's what you're looking for, is a nice blackening of the outside, just like that. In the meantime, I'm gonna take some zucchini and yellow squash, and I'm just gonna cut the ends off, and then I'm gonna cut them into long slices. You know, if they're small enough, you could just cut them in half. You don't necessarily have to slice them, but I'm gonna try to get 3 slices out of each one. And then this time, instead of using basil, since it is squash, I'm gonna use parsley, just to give it kind of a different flavor. I'm gonna add salt and pepper again. There's some fresh cracked pepper. This time, we won't have to use as much oil because zucchini does not absorb oil as much as eggplant does. I'm gonna toss that around just like I did before. We're gonna put these on the grill, take the eggplant off, and we're gonna continue when we return right after this.
Looking for these? You drive Buzzed. It could be one very expensive ride.
First, you gotta make bail. Then pay me to get your car back.
Your insurance premiums will go through the roof.
And my legal fees just keep adding up. All told, it could end up costing you $10,000.
Buzzed, busted, and broke. Because buzz driving is drunk driving.
Here's your check.
Oh, you got it. You know, since I got rid of my car, I really enjoy walking.
Okay. God, no.
Getting pulled over for buzz driving could cost you around $10,000 in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates.
Oh, you're home early. You live with your mom?
That'll set your game back a few years. Buzzed, busted, and broke. Because buzz driving is drunk driving.
Hey, we're back, and when you look at Brussels sprouts, you either say, yay, or yuck. And hopefully, after I show you how to do this today, you will say yay more than you say yuck. I have definitely turned a lot of people's minds around about Brussels sprouts. So our mushrooms, I must admit, I snuck out and got some port wine vinegar and put it in there because the pepper juice just wasn't enough. So that's the only other ingredient I put in there. So I'm gonna take the mushrooms. You can cool them overnight in the juice that they cook in, and they taste so good cold. Or you can serve them warm like we will today. We'll put them in here. Put them on top of our vegetable presentation that we're planning for our little cocktail party that we're having later on. After we do the show, myself and the crew, we're gonna have a little cocktail party. Not. Okay, so coming back over here to our grilled vegetables. Beautiful looking grill marks. Some nice caramelization there. I like to keep the yellow and the green separate when I put it on this little tray I have here. Typically, again, I would cool off the vegetables before I cut them, before I serve them. One nice thing about this particular appetizer is you could put it out at room temperature and it will just continue to get better as time goes by. So it works out pretty well. I'm gonna flip the yellow squash back onto the skin side so it doesn't get overcooked. Same thing with that zucchini. And now I'm gonna get to the Brussels sprouts. When I first came to Omaha, Nebraska, I met my wife's family and they were a little picky about their food. Some of them didn't like garlic, and when I said the word Brussels sprouts, they went, yuck. So on Thanksgiving one time, I made them some. And what I do is, I blanch the Brussels sprouts in boiling water, whole. I cut the little bottom piece off that might not be edible, and then I blanch them. And by blanching them, I mean I cook them until they're just done. And then I cool them off. And then after they're cool, I cut them all in half so they have a flat side. I put them in a pan with a lot of butter, maybe a little too much for some people, and I'm gonna put more in. Then I'm gonna put some salt, if you like. You can feel safe this way. And sprinkle the salt in like so. And then I have my fresh cracked pepper, which I'm going to put all over this. Plenty of it, and I might even add some more later, but once they're in the pan, we don't want to touch them. We don't want to shake them around. People have a tendency when they put something in the pan, they have to shake it right away. But in this particular case, we would like for the Brussels sprouts to get crispy and brown on the outside, and then we're all going to eat them. Go back to our yellow squash and zucchini here. I'm going to remove it from the grill, and I'm actually going to turn the grill off now because that sound will stop. I separated the green from the yellow just to make it easier later on when I cut them up and I put them on my platter. But they're all pretty nicely cooked, and the one thing about the squash is it's cooked so that it's just soft, but not so soft that it falls apart. And that's what we're trying to do. So typically I would take this pan, stick it in the refrigerator till it's ice cold, cut it up, make a platter out of it, and then put it out at room temperature an hour or so before the guests arrive, and it would start to warm up, and as it did, the flavor would only get better. So today we do not have the luxury of as much time as we'd like to cool it off, so we're just gonna work with a little warm. We did have the sense to roast some peppers yesterday and peel them. We actually peeled them under warm running water, took all the seeds out, took the top out, took the top off, and then cut them into nice little squares so they'd be easier to cut up. We want to try to remove all the skin we possibly can. You know, sometimes it takes a little extra effort. A little skin on there is okay, but we want to try to get all the black marks off that we possibly can. So then, depending on how comfortable you are with a knife, you can cut the whole pile, but I would recommend no more than 2 at a time. And what size you cut them is completely up to you. We'll go for just nice squares of peppers, like so. You could make diamonds, you could make strips, you can make whatever you want. Old Italian guys, they like to roast peppers like this on a grill and then mix them with garlic and tomato sauce and serve them on Italian sausage, which is a really good way to go. If you have yellow peppers, you can roast those too. You could have several different colors. But I'm just going to mix them together, and then I'm place some of them on either side of our platter, like so. Just stack them up nice, like so. You know, if you have any left over, you could always put them into something else. A roasted vegetable soup is excellent if you have vegetables left over from this platter. I'm going to go back here. I'm going to just move them around a little bit because I could smell like it's burning. One thing I noticed too is we probably, in honor of Julia Child, need to put some more butter in the pan because she loved butter and I loved her. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut the zucchini and the yellow squash. I'm going to put it on the platter. We're going to let the Brussels sprouts cook a little more, and we'll be right back right after this. So hang in there. So I need a few minutes to cook these, so that's why I stop now, and then we'll come back and we'll do that. But we got one segment left, right? That's it? Yeah, baby. 2 minutes.
Next time when you're closing like that, you can just like keep doing what you're doing.
Okay.
Continue and go into the next one, just so you're not.
The guy bro yesterday said, I'm not your bro. I said, you wish you were, dude, because I'd be a good bro to have. Okay, we're ready. All right, welcome back to Reiver Recipes. Before I forget, I want to thank the wonderful people at CB17, the students, the teachers, everybody for helping us do this, because this is kind of fun for us all. Also, the people in food service for providing us with these vegetables, unbeknownst to them. Okay, so I have our vegetables that we've roasted, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to chop them up whatever size you think is appropriate. Maybe this squash, I want to cut it in half first. And the squash, like I said, it's cooked, but not so soft that it falls apart. It's definitely cooked, but it still has some crunch to it. So what I like to do is I like to cut all the vegetables before I decide where to put them. These I think I'll just leave whole-sized. Some of them are a little thinner. And then I'm going to decide where I want to put them. I wanted to try to make it look like a picture if I can, and somewhat symmetrical. So I'll just start by putting a few pieces on each place. go with the yellow squash first. My hands are clean, obviously, and I recommend that you clean your hands often. I'm going to put a little bit in between all the yellow squash now, just like so. And then I'm going to get my eggplant. These slices I know are cooked a little better, so I'm going to put them in a place where they'll be more prominent because people will want to eat them. And then take the mushrooms, maybe take a moment here to rearrange the mushrooms a little so they're totally in the middle. And we get a little more altitude because people, when they eat, they are really into altitude. So I'm going to find a space to put my eggplants. And you can see what a beautiful assortment of vegetables we have here, grilled for extra flavor. I think what I'm going to do here is I'm going to save the rest of the vegetables as a backup so when these start to run low, I can make the tray look good again. So now we're going to come over here to our Brussels sprouts. And everybody in here, do they smell good? Oh yeah, they do. So now you'll see what has happened is they have actually gotten a beautiful color brown that Brussels sprout has. And that's how we want them to look. Brown on one side at least, on both sides if we have the chance. We'll put those onto the platter. You can top them with a little Parmesan cheese. You can even mix bacon in with them. But before you do that, I recommend you try them just like this first. Plenty of salt and pepper. We'd like to thank you for joining us. We hope you'll enjoy vegetables and enjoy cooking and enjoy life. Good luck, and we'll see you next time.